So, hello, welcome to Values Plus AI equals Impact. We're so happy that you're here joining us today, either in person or if you're watching the recording sometime later. Today is July 16th, 2025, and it is 2 p.m. CEST Berlin time in the afternoon. And we're very happy to have you joining us today to talk about what you're doing with values in your life, and then adding to that what AI can be doing to help you move your projects forward and to make a bigger impact in the world. And so the way we always start this is just everyone having a short introduction of who they are and what they're working on, and then we see how we can continue the conversation with AI and see what we can be doing to enhance your impact. So David, why don't you start today?
Okay. Yes, I'm focused in two areas. Focused very much on purpose and values, or the other way around, values and purpose. I don't see one is sufficient without the other. I see they're very complementary. You know, we need to be purposeful, but we need to have good values in how we apply that purpose. And so the intersection of those areas where I'm particularly interested. So in fact, just to refer to a call that I was just on, if you like, just to bring it to life, I was involved in a call with a group called More in Common, which is a group in the UK that focused on how do we create more meaningful and engaging participation in governance, in government, and the different types of. They were talking about different types of categories of how we could segment the individuals into groupings that are more meaningful than left, right, and all of those that we traditionally had, saying those really don't apply very well now, and they're looking at new types of segmentation. But my interest is around the segmentation around values, which is around differentiating between the me and the we, if that makes sense, which really embeds back to our values. Are we focused very much on me, or we focused very much on we, and that sort of element. So that was in the previous call I was on, linking to values. But it also links, given that we're talking about governance, that's my other area of interest, is how we apply purpose into governance, values and purpose into governance systems. That's not just in organizational governance, and there I link to the purpose-driven organizations movement that is moving from a UK program called PAS 808 which provides guidance in how to create purposeful governance, but also that is now shifting into an international sphere through the ISO standards, which is set to launch in about 1.5 years, and that is busy being developed. So this is how we bring purpose into the art of governance, and that's not just within organizations, that also needs to be applied in the world of government, local government, national government. How do we do purposeful government? So that's another area I'm interested in. So I'm interested in both values and purpose, but I'm also interested in with those being combined, how AI and a values-led AI can help augment purposeful decision making, embedding the values in how we do that. So that's both in terms of in organizations, but also in a more democratic, participative way in the area of government. So those are my areas of interest. That's my day job. That's where my particular passion and interests are. And I'm really interested in how AI can augment this in a values-based way to make better, purposeful decisions quicker, which it gives more agency to people in how those decisions are made. And I think AI has got a huge opportunity to augment and support that. Which is what my interest is there. So I'll stop there. But does that give a flavour of where my interests are and why AI is also of interest to me as well?
Very good. Thank you very much. Charles, you've done this so many times, but so you can do it in your sleep. Would you like to introduce yourself for those who are watching this video for the first time?
I will indeed. I've also listened to lots of people expressing why they're interested in the intersection of AI and values, and I have to say that's very good. Interesting account of why you're interested, David. Very, very targeted and focused, and interesting, because when I have been thinking of AI, it's not so much to make better decisions, better choices. It's more to do with reducing all the sweat that goes into the whole process behind those decisions and after those decisions. So, condensing information and summarizing all of that sort of stuff. But yes, I think it's a really good point. I mean, it can clearly help us. I would hope to make better decisions too. So I am also interested in that. I generally am interested in the way that AI can help me personally and me as the global coordinator of World Values Day and various other roles. I'm interested in the way AI can help me to with putting values into action in those various roles, personal and organizational roles, but also the other way around, how values, whether it's my values, your values, or anyone's values, how values, good values, positive values, human values, can be baked into AI tools, AI mechanisms, so that we don't suddenly end up with, the sort of horror stories which maybe got a bit overheated a year or two ago, but I think there's still a worry in my own feeling. I'm still worried that we can get rogue AI, not just rogue AI, but AI perhaps more generally, more systemically, having a different set of values from human beings, in the same way that the plants and the animals have, to the extent they have values, or we impute values to them. They have their own interests at heart. Can we expect AI to have our human interests at heart? And if so, which ones? So I'm very interested in both directions, really. If that's helpful.
Wonderful. Thank you, Charles. So, David, is there something in specific that you would be interested in talking about from the AI point of view today? Because I was just in Geneva last week at the AI for Good Summit of the United Nations and saw lots of wonderful new things that we could talk about. But the question is, what is it that you're looking for or looking at? And is there something we can do during our short discussion today to help you in that sense?
Okay. I'll give just picking up what Charles said then. Just talking about the areas where AI can help. We know AI can be used malevolently, and it is already being used quite malevolently. But we're talking about how to use AI benevolently in good ways. And as Charles mentioned, one of the first areas is in the area of being able to do great data analysis. It's very good at taking a lot of data to extract components from, which and so that's the first part of decision making. There's a shed load of data out there. So one question is, what questions should we be asking? The second question, when we do ask those questions and look for data, then how do we then analyze that data? I think AI can very much step into that role, if that makes sense. And then given that data, AI can examine that and pick out key themes. So then when we get key themes or key recommendations in terms of actions people might recommend in terms of a decision, we can then start to have some, in a democratized way, AI allows us to take 1 million times more pieces of data together, or 1 billion times more pieces of data together, to get meaningful data from that. That is a positive power of AI, which allows agency. It allows us to widen the democratic sphere, both within a business, but also within a nation. So we can now not just ask a few for their ideas, like in a poll. Everybody can feed into it. And they can also feed into it their thoughts, their ideas, and then they can build on other people's ideas to build better ideas that then the group collectively can then start to analyze that data. So these are things that are coming out, and then use that data to present better ideas. And you can even get mass voting. So those methods of collating all this volume of data from everybody rather than a few is becoming real. And AI is now providing the opportunity to analyze that very quickly and to present it in a form where people can look at it and build on it and make decisions on it. Does that make sense? So that, and then after that, then there's a decision making itself. But it's the first part is the AI being able to provide agency to everybody to create collective ideas and thoughts and examining that into themes. And then the second is how I can then use that to create agentic decision making, more collaborative decision making. So those are the areas I'm particularly interested in. I see it, there are groups that seem to be doing great things in this area already, looking at how I can help in that first bit. And that's where my interest is particularly to start with, but obviously then building that in. If we look at where it can be applied, well, it's already been applied partly in, let me get, in small groups to help businesses become more collaborative in how they improve their decision making. But it's also been included now in schools where, you know, where we have, if we take the old school system, we had the school board. Well, people will say, well, we'll have an elected representative of the students on the board, which is a great idea. It's a good start. But so they might say, well, we'll have one representative from each class. Well, that is already reducing 29 people's views. And often the 29 who probably got the best ideas are often the quietest. So they won't be the person that's sat in on that board. So, you know, so now there's a realization that with the technology now, and particularly then using AI to examine all the data people provide, well, now schools are starting to introduce systems where every student in a school, in every week, in every school, in every class in the school are actually involved in the decision making of what the school does. So it's no longer a single representative from a classroom, but it's every child has the ability to feed that back in. Now, the problem that used to be, well, we got so much data, we get overwashed. We cannot deal with it all. Well, this is where AI comes in, because AI can take all that data, people's ideas, and it can form it, look at patterns, and from that it can present what summaries, and then people can then build on those summaries and get it better. So AI is coming into that area to bring everybody in. So that's the areas I'm particularly interested in. How can we build and extend these ideas into schools? How can we build them into our businesses or our organisations? And how can we build it into government? So proper collaborative ideas can be shaped and decisions can be made on it. And again, coming back to the fact that people don't necessarily, it's all about having the voice heard, if that makes sense. It doesn't mean everybody's doing what I've said. It just means people feel that their voice and ideas have been heard within a collective group, which then gives them more engagement into the final decisions that are made. And that comes back to, if I think back to what Nelson Mandela talked about in terms of governance, you know, and his view of governance was that he learned it from his father, a tribal leader, and there was a number of things that his father used to do in these groupings. And the first was people all first of all sat in a circle. There was no, so the reason for that is there's no head of the table. Everybody's views mattered equally. The second thing his father did was he always speaks last. And the reason for that is multifold, because by going around the whole group, even the quietest people will contribute. You know, or then say, well, I've not got a view at all, but that's okay. But everybody's view is important and listened to. And by the end, you know, and they would then have a better idea of what might be good. Does that make sense? Because everybody collectively is providing all the ideas to the top. And then the leader, and as Nelson Mandela would do in his own world after he obviously, you know, became a leader himself, he would speak last, and the reason is because you've heard all these brilliant ideas from everybody, so you're in a great position to form what might be best out of all this. And the speak last also says if he was to speak first, then people will then just mirror what he said rather than contributing new ideas that might have been helpful or different to that and better. So one of the challenges was it was not to show an expression when people commented, because if he expressed anything, then people would see that and then that would reflect on what then people would say. So the hardest thing was always not having any facial expression at all, to make sure that those contributions kept coming in without any prejudice or bias.
Mhm.
But the technology is allowing this to happen now, and so some schools now are starting to do this. So it's not one student may have an impact on the board decision making once a week. It's how every single child feels they're contributing. And again, that going around the table means because they were consulted and they're part of it, they're engaged with it.
Mhm.
It connects with them, even if it wasn't their idea that was taken in the end. Their ideas and thoughts have gone into the process of decision making collectively.
Mhm.
So, and again, so that created more engagement for the change that would then occur, would reduce any barriers to those changes being done after people had decided. So the power of AI in this area, and particularly in this first part, collecting this mass data of people's ideas, to then look at that intelligently and quickly using the AI systems to look at trends and then promote those back, is a very powerful tool. And one of the examples, for instance, used in politics and was used in Taiwan was the Polish system, if you've heard of that.
Mhm.
So they used a system called Polis to actually create this engagement. And the interest, it's a great history on how that was formed, but without going into it. But it's very powerful. And it turned the decision making in Taiwan positively in two ways. One, um, they got great ideas, and two, more than they could have ever imagined without doing it, because they had a collective set of ideas coming through. And two, they built trust. There
Mhm.
was a low trust in Taiwan, but when they started to do this, the trust levels in government skyrocketed, um, because people felt they were being listened to and that were engaging them in the policies and ideas that were being presented. And I'll give you one example. Is this helpful or just
It
and then we
is,
can
but
talk?
I also have a couple of things I'd like to show for people who aren't so familiar with this that maybe will help them do some
Okay.
of the things that you're talking about, if you don't
Okay.
mind.
Of course. Great.
Let
I'll
me
stop
let
there.
me just share my screen, and these links will be going out to everyone who's been invited to watch this video as well. So don't worry about writing anything down.
Okay.
This is something that I was introduced to, and I love the fact of the way it works. It's called Prompt Cowboy.
Mhm.
And what it does is for all of those people who say, well, I want to write a prompt, but I don't want to do a course in prompt engineering, or I don't know how to really write a good prompt. This is a page that helps you do that. But you notice it not only helps you do the pages, but it does what you were mentioning, David, which is why I picked it up. Analyze the data
Yeah.
and research and brainstorm. So it does a lot of those things. But if we just wanted to say, I want to set up a system to integrate all the ideas of the students in my school. What should I do? Just because you were mentioning schools. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a very simple statement. Any of us can do that. You have the choice to look at, do you want a standard prompt? Do you want reasoning? Do you want deep research? Do you want a video? Afterwards, it will do all of those things depending on, we will just do the basics to make it go quickly. So if we choose standard prompt and we click on this little arrow, watch the magic that happens now. I love it. They call it the lazy prompt and the great prompt. So what it's doing is it's taking this very basic statement and changing it into a very well structured prompt.
Right.
But the other thing that it's doing is asking questions.
Mhm.
So we're just going to pick some because this isn't real. So I'm the student council president. The goal is to improve student engagement based on what you said before. You can write in anything of your own as well. You don't have to use these.
Yeah.
And we have a weekly assembly, right? Just as an example. So now it takes that input and rewrites the prompt. Okay. So it's giving you a better prompt because you've been giving it more information.
Yeah.
You can copy this prompt. You can edit this prompt. If there are other things you think about later that you want to add to it, you can do that. But once you've copied it, it asks you, which of these would you like to go into? It would open it automatically and put in the prompt and do it for you. So to get a good start and to make sure you put in all the things that are very important, it knows exactly how to set this up so that the AI systems do the things that you really want and not the 2 lines that I wrote at the top.
Yes.
Okay. So I use for any major thing that I want to do that's not something about what do I feel about it, but where I really need something systemic. This is what I always use now. Because these prompts, if I compare, I put in my prompt, whatever it is in a system, and then I write that and put it in here and have this, and I did this morning and ran my prompt versus this and saw the difference that I got in the same system, in the same AI tool. It is magnificent, the differences you get. The other thing to talk about analysis that you were talking about, David, which I think is really important, is this is a system called Notebook LM, which is part of Google. And they have set up their own kinds of notebooks, but you can set up your own notebook. So I'll just show you something here to give you an idea of how this works. I had a client who wanted to have an interview with AWS, with Amazon. And he had been given some questions and he'd written the answers and he'd put them into a PDF. But he said to me, Rhonda, I don't know if these answers are good enough and I want to practice doing the interviews with you. Okay, so this is what I've been told I need to be able to do at an AWS interview. I said, okay. What did I do? I went online and found this website that says 130 must-know AWS interview questions. So I fed these 2 sources into this notebook. And then you start doing the chat, and it only looks at this. So when you were saying analyzing data that you've been receiving, this is not combining it with anything else. This is only looking at the sources you give it.
Yes.
And then you start asking the questions about those particular 2 sources. And once you do that, it will give you all of these different things, including what it calls a deep dive conversation, which I don't have for this, but I have for one of my own sites. And what that does is it pulls all the information and it turns it into something that sounds like a podcast. Yeah. There's a male voice and a female voice, and they talk back and forth about the information that they have in there. So people can hear it as an audio as well.
Yeah.
So for those people who are thinking about the things you're thinking about, David, which were so important, one is to get a good start.
Yes.
And to be asking the things you need to ask. And once you have lots of things and you need to have them looked at and analyzed, and you need to keep asking more and more questions about this. And if you go in there, this then divides things into notes. So every time you ask a question, you get a new note. Yeah. And you can go back and review. I don't want to open those, obviously, because this is private information, but you see, this is basically what's going on. And then for every question we asked, Simon said, Rhonda, I know I always answer the questions too long. Typical, very, very deep-based IT kind of a gentleman. He said, I need to have shorter answers. So we put his answers in there and we said, make a more concise answer. And it's short, so that Simon could see exactly what the things were that Notebook decided were the most important things out of what he said. Yes. But still doing it in this format, because this is the standardized format for them: situation, task, action, result. He had to give his answers that way. And the system could do that for him and make the shorter answers. So those are just two very practical. I'm the practical lady in the team. Those are just 2 very practical ways to share for people who are doing these things that haven't had a chance to use those yet. having a good prompt is extremely helpful, and you get so much more out of it. If you know the old saying in IT, garbage in, garbage out. Well, quality in, quality out would be my other thing about that. But the second thing is not having an open system, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or you name it, whoever you're using, whether you have an open system pulling things from everywhere, or if you only want to concentrate on your own things.
Yes,
And if it only
exactly.
uses those sources, then you're getting really your ideas, and you're not having this option of hallucination,
Yes.
which is coming up in AI as well. Because if it says only take information from these sources, that's all you're going to get. So
And
those things may be helpful for people who are doing things like you, David.
yeah, lovely,
Yeah.
brilliant, thank you. And
Mhm.
the second one, does it take any type of data in?
Yeah,
Is
it
it
has a list. Let me see. It has a list of the sources that it would use, its websites, its PDFs. I'm just looking to see if I click the add button. Here we go. I can share my screen again.
can it be Excel spreadsheets or databases of data or
It's a Google-based thing. Remember
okay,
that, okay?
right, yeah,
So it's doing things out of Google. It's doing websites and YouTube's, or you can put in any kind of a file that's listed here. So what
okay,
you may want to do is take your Excel and convert it into a PDF,
yeah,
yeah, or just copy and paste it if it's not too much,
yeah,
or put everything into a Google format because, as I said, this is a Google tool, so it's doing
Google,
everything
yeah,
in Google, obviously.
yeah, yeah,
But if you do things in Google, then it should work as well. But that's a nice thing; it can go in and read all of that.
yeah, yeah, brilliant, thank you.
Okay?
Are these the Prompt Cowboy and Notebook free or chargeable?
These are both free.
They're
I mean,
both
there
free.
are chargeable. Everything I show online, I always show the free versions.
Yes. Okay.
So I am only using the free versions of all these things. So this is Prompt Cowboy. You see all these nice things I've done in the past.
Yeah.
Keeps them in a library so you can call on them again. And this is part of Google. So if you have a normal Google, Gmail, whatever kind of an account, then it just hitches onto that and it knows who you are. And then you can just start adding these things. And as you saw before, I've only used a very small amount of the source material that I'm allowed to put in.
Yeah.
I don't use any of these things all the time because I
Mhm.
find the variety is what's wonderful. I use different things for different objectives, but especially the other nice thing about Notebook LM is you can collaborate with people. So
Yeah.
one of the gentlemen on my team, we always work in the same notebook, and he writes things in it, and I write things in it the way you do with Google Documents as well. You can go back and forth, and you can send notes and share it with people and all those kinds of things. You can do that all in there as well. So you're not just working on your own.
Brilliant. Thank you. Yeah,
Mhm.
really, really insightful. So I'll take a look.
Yeah.
I can see very immediately the value of both of those. So
Yeah.
thank
Yeah, I hadn't heard of the Prompt Cowboy, Rhonda.
No, I hadn't heard of that since I've learned that since the last time you and I spoke as well. So
Really?
that's a nice thing. Charles and I meet once a month, and we always catch up on
you. Yeah.
what we haven't heard since the last time we spoke. So yeah,
Yeah, so no, that's very good, isn't it? I'm
yeah.
very impressed by that, especially by your demo.
Well, and the nice thing is about those things are you can only improve. I've seen that since I've used, I never write a prompt as long as Prompt Cowboy does, but I see how it breaks it down. And if I need something more quickly, I just actually go in and say things sort of in that format. It's upgraded the way I do prompts if I have to do them on my own as well. But as I said, for anything serious, I do everything in Prompt Cowboy.
No, it's very good because I find what I tend to do with whatever, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, I end up, just whole series. I ask one question, make one prompt, and then I've another, and that which is sort of, I suppose, doing the same job in some ways, but it's
Yeah.
just a laborious way of extracting the answers, really.
Well, there is if you have something that's really big and it's not well structured. Obviously, this Prompt Cowboy knows that this is a structure that works well, but for the rest of us who don't know that, if you don't have something in there that is really well structured and it understands how to do it, it does better in small pieces.
Yeah.
You know, so you put in the first thing and then it offers you, should I do this for you or this for you or this for you? And then you say yes or no, or you write something else, or you speak something else if you prefer to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. And remember, you can speak 7 times more quickly than you can write.
Yeah.
So if you're doing a lot of things in those big systems, using the audio goes a lot faster in that sense as well, if you don't want to sit and type the whole time, if it's something longer. But those are things you just, you know, intuitively come into as you use the systems more and find out more about them, which is one of the nice reasons why we do this once a month, you know, just for everybody to keep up on things. So I was using ChatGTP with a prompt system that somebody had given me and said, you know, we're going to do this project and everybody do it this way. And he gave us the prompt. It was like a page and a half. And it said this prompt is in 6 parts and never go to the next part without asking the person if they're finished or if they want to go to the next part. And it worked that way. So I had the entire prompt in one piece of text, but it always stopped and said, so Rhonda, do you want to go to the next part now, or is there something else we need to finish here first? So if you set it up the right way, you can do the whole thing, but if not, you can just keep talking to it. And this was the one where the gentleman also said, please talk to it, not just write it in typing, because it also picks up emotional things. And I was very surprised. And at one point, ChatGPT was talking back to me, and I was sitting here crying because it had hit the nail so much on the head. And then there was a section where I was supposed to ask about how I interact with a client. And so I had spoken in, you know, all the things. When I talk to Laura, we do this and this and this and this. And it came back and said all these things about how it interpreted what I do with Laura. And 2 days later, I was in a call with Laura. And I said, well, this all sounds very nice to me, and I could be very flattered by what it was saying. But the proof in the pudding is what happens when Laura sees this, because she didn't have any input into the system. And I specifically didn't put in her last name, because then it would have run to LinkedIn or something, you know, and found out more about her, which I didn't want it to do anyway. So I had only said Laura. And then I opened up my screen and I said, Laura, look, this is what I said about what happens when you and I interact. And she read it. She said, yeah, Rhonda, that's the way it is. I said, now look what ChatGTP made of this. And then she read that section and she said, Rhonda, that's exactly what happens when you and I work together. And it had no input from Laura. And the amazing thing about it was, although we're both native speakers of English and we've known each other for a number of years now, it summarized the way we work together and put 2 words together that I've never heard anybody use together before, but they make so much sense. He said, you know, the way you and Laura work, it's called wise companionship. All of us know the word wise. All of us know the word companionship. I had never, ever heard a human being say wise companionship. I mean, not that nobody ever has. I just hadn't heard it yet. But we both looked at that and we said, yeah, that's what it is. So, you know, those kinds of things that are now coming out of a system like this, where I just sit there and I'm always amazed. I mean, this is fantastic. And I'm always amazed on the one hand. But on the other hand, I think, look at what this is giving us as humanity, to be looking at things in this very different way and putting things together, all the pieces of the puzzle. We all know all the words, we just don't put it together that way. And of course, sometimes things come out and I'm not terribly, you know, surprised or pleased by what I read. But then there are times there is real magic coming out of stuff like this. And you may find that in your analysis, David.
Yeah. That
things will come out that nobody in the room has ever thought of.
And I think it's fascinating what you just said about the picking up the emotion, you know, moving to voice to pick up the emotion. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I see that as valuable, because people don't write things down. But if they were asked to comment, verbally, then the systems can cope with verbal translations now. We can move to that. But the factor is picking up an emotional context. That's that's very, very powerful. The fact it's already starting to do that, is obviously, I can see that being even more valuable. Systems of inquiry need to move to just answering questions, not to typing things down, and like you say, you can speak it 7 times faster, but the point you're saying is you can pick up the emotion connected with it. And that is important data, important, especially from a human point of view, from a values point of view. Picking up that human context is critical, is how people feel about these things. That's the important bit. And if that can go into the decision making, into the analysis and the decision making ultimately, then very, very powerful. So yeah, thank you. And what was the system that was already starting to do that? Did you say that was
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT.
That was ChatGPT. Yeah,
great.
And
So
I mean, we all learned, all of us who had the fortune to have higher education, which I assume all of us in the room have, we all went to school and we all learned, well, you say it that way, but you write it this way.
Yeah.
And people in our generation, at least, I mean, maybe that's not so prevalent nowadays, but people in our generation, we learned that when you write, you stop, you think, you pay more attention, you do all those things. Those things don't come out when you type as opposed to when you speak.
Yeah.
And so you're giving essentially also different input when you speak, even if it's about the same ideas, because of the way you're saying it.
The way you present.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And also, I mean, those systems will obviously, as I see, will advance to what are they saying and the emotion connected to that, but what are they not saying?
Yes.
So, so if it starts to pick up that as well, it picks up the emotion of what they are saying, but also picks up what they're not saying. And again, then if it can prompt and engage, well, in a more collaborative way, can explore, well, you didn't mention this. and again, that could tease out more. So the possibilities are endless in terms of how this could help humanity and build back our value systems into decision making, which ultimately that's what we want. The decisions need to be made for the support humans to thrive and for our planet to thrive, and that goes back to our value system, and we need these systems to help us to do that. And obviously that's why I'm encouraged by these things, that this is AI being put to good use, which obviously,
and if you learn more and more to work with it. So the gentleman who gave me this 1.5-page prompt, he's the one, he showed in a demonstration where he said it gave him something and he looked at ChatGPT and said, you can do better than that. Go deeper, give me more what haven't I thought of yet? Going in that direction that you were saying. So it isn't doing that automatically, but if you tell it to, it does do those things. And the thing where it said, ask at the end of each section, do you want to go on? And for 5 of them, I said yes, but for 1 of them, I really wanted to know things that were not part of the original system. And I asked in addition, and I sat there and I said, yeah, this is all great, but you haven't talked about this point yet. So let's go into that. It had no idea about that before because it was not part of the original prompt. I was asking something totally, not unrelated, but not part of what it had been set up to do. And it had no problem with that either. And connecting what I was asking to what I had already said and what it had already produced before. And I said, well, based on that, what about this and this and this? And it had no problems with that. And with this audio that you can make in Notebook LM, I don't know exactly how to do that, but you can start that audio and it talks, and you can interrupt it and talk with it.
Yeah.
And it will continue the conversation. So it's not just the male voice and the female voice, but you can be part of that as well. And it will adjust based on what you say to it.
Yeah. Right.
So, gentlemen, I kept you way over time. Excuse me. I just looked at the clock and didn't pay attention. Sorry about that. I had said this was only half an hour. We've gone over some time. I don't want to take more of your time than was originally planned. If we need to stop now, we can definitely do that. Excuse me for not paying attention. And if not, we can also stay around for a couple more minutes if you have other things you'd like to bring up.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. Thank you.
Mhm.
Really insightful sessions.
Yeah.
Again, thank you. I guess coming back to this cowboy, this you know, this prompt
Yeah.
cowboy. I guess, does it help the fact that these different systems have probably got different ways that they like things to come in, and does this prompt system, when it goes to these different systems, present it in the way that they know that those individual LLMs like things to be fed into them or not?
I'm not sure because I'm certainly not an expert, but let me go back. Hold on one second. We'll look at this. So it lists certain things on when it starts. So I assume it's optimized for these. So when you look at here, watch this. ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude,
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Mistral, which is a European system. So I assume those are the four that it's based on, although I don't know that for sure, but I'm just imagining that because I can see it here.
Yeah.
So I assume that when you go in, it would be, you know, it's looking at how these four systems work. I mean, there are other systems besides these as well, but this is an Australian system, I was told.
Okay.
And therefore, I don't know why these four and not other ones or whatever, but those seem to be the four that it knows how to work with best, I would say, because those are the ones that are listed here when you start.
Although you could presumably copy the prompt and put it into something else, Gemini.
Oh, you can copy all the prompts because I copy everything I ever do in AI. I copy and put it into a Word document because you never know if the system's going to break down or something. So everything I get from Prompt Cowboy, I also have in a Word document. I'll have to do that sometime. I'll have to upload it to something else and see what it does, which is not one of these four. I'll have to try that once, Copilot or something, and see how it works. But you can, when you copy this, it doesn't just have to go into one of these things. I always, as I said, I always copy everything, put it into a Word document. So I can go back and use it later if I would like to again. Yeah. So I hope that helps.
Brilliant. Yes, that does. I think you're suggesting that it probably does, because obviously it wouldn't, I guess, ask the question in the first place if there wasn't a different type of prompt for those systems. If it was the same prompt, they'd just say, what do you want to improve? Whereas obviously they're asking you, which system do you want to put it in?
Well, no, it's not asking you which system you want to put it in, but it's mentioning those four to get better results from those four.
From those systems,
so I assume if you did things, it wouldn't help in Grok, maybe, for example, as another system.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, but
absolutely
you have to check with
fascinating
Prompt Cowboy to see what their policy is on that. I'm not quite sure. Yeah.
And we could put the prompt into the system itself.
Yeah.
That's the
Hey,
question.
you could probably do that as well and see what happens. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, as many people know, but if you're watching the recording and you're not sure, I always send an email after the day when we've had this that includes how to get into the system, Compolium, where we have our group meetings where we can see all the video recordings from today. And there is also a set of all the tools that we've ever discussed. There's a database in there as well. And I'll be mentioning those in the email that I send tomorrow, so you will have the links directly so you don't have to go look them up. You'll be receiving all that tomorrow once we get everything uploaded to the platform.
Lovely. Thank you.
Yeah?
Thank you.
All right. Wonderful. Then look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you for all your great input today. This is co-creation at its best. That's what we love about this system. And we're really pleased that you could be with us, and hope to see you again in another session soon, or get back to me if you need anything individual just for yourself.
Lovely. And just on that, it's every second Wednesday, is that right?
Yes. This month it was different because I was in Geneva last week.
Okay.
But otherwise it's always on the second Wednesday of the month, and they're scheduled now till the end of the year.
Okay. Lovely. Thank you.
And it's always the same times and everything. I mean, we go to daylight savings time, check on that, but we all in this room go to daylight savings time at the same time. But they're all set up from Charles and Eventbrite, and they're all set up on my at event calendar, so you can check.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, David. Thank you so much for all your input. Look forward to seeing you another time soon.
Yes, thank you, Rhonda. And thank you, Charles.
Thanks, David. Good to see you.
And you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.